this one right here. Endless Space to Review Jingoist Joy Edition, one of the best 4X games out there. Let's rate it.
Hey people, Seth here. Humanity. One day, we will inevitably reach the stars. And one day, we will inevitably reach other intelligent, sentient, yet utterly alien races. We will shape their many appendages, engage in trade, exchange ideas, and even attempt diplomacy. But we all know, inevitably, how this has to end.
The System Destroyer. Yep. This thing is disgusting. Damn.
Welcome to Endless Space 2. Endless Space 2 is a 4X game, which, if you're not familiar with, stands for the 4 X's. Expand, explore, and exterminate all xenomorphs before they do the same to you. Probably, most likely. I've played this turn-based sci-fi
strategy to kill you anyway.
Strategy intensely for the better part of
unavoidable.
Month, and before that, about 2 years, and I must confess, it's pretty damn good. Also, there is a story, and it is absolutely critical you understand the lore of this game. In the current job market, Endless Space historians are in extremely high demand, and boast starting salaries of about 300k. Most of the Fortune 500 companies hire at least 2 of them in order to understand what the fuck is going on. The story is told to you through wiki articles, the accuracy of which is questionable, because I've edited several articles and they still haven't.
Was that Tyler 1? Wait a second.
Which is questionable because
this is. I think it's that.
I've edited several.
Blind. Horatio. Oh, the dude who duplicated himself, yeah.
Articles, and they still haven't caught me. In the universe of Endless Space 1 and 2, there is, or was, an incredibly advanced civilization called the Endless. What happened to the Endless? Well, there's less of them. The end. Roll credits. But no, they went to space and they developed technology. They revolutionized the galaxy by creating dust. Dust is used as money in Endless Space 2, which it isn't. It's an autonomous cloud computing network of nanomachines that get smarter as the cloud gets bigger. They're capable of self-assembly, self-autonomy, and farming crypto tokens at rates never before seen in the known galaxy. However, they developed a little too hard when they figured out how to upload your soul.
The old RTS game, man. I love it when Seth puts that shit in. Like, I instantly get that nostalgic feeling. And this shit, I don't know, man.
So half of them went on to live as immortal machines running on the 5G network. These were known as the virtual Endless. The other half, known as the concrete Endless, considered them an abomination because it's hard to consider a sentient laptop as intelligent life.
And I guess they slaughtered each other to the brink of extinction.
Even harder when you find out it's still running Windows Vista. Unable to reconcile their differences, the Endless decided to end each other. The Virtuals unleashed bioweapons on the Concrete. The Concrete sent malware to their mailbox, forcing them to run 3 billion instances of Bonzi Buddy. Needless to say, they wiped each other out. The Endless came to an end, but many centuries later, other races figured out space travel, picking apart the ashes and remains of a civilization long forgotten.
Bro, can we talk about the visuals? Like, this is insane. This is the part, like the battles themselves, they were 10 times better than Stellaris. You can't prove me otherwise. Like, this game is 10 times more visually pleasing than Stellaris itself. And this is why it's so underrated, man. I don't know.
In the galaxy of the Endless is where our story takes place. So, what do you do in Endless Space 2? Well, you pick a spacefaring civilization and you try to win. But what is victory? Victory can be anything. Money, technology, intergalactic conquest, or even weaponizing the influence of e-girl streamers to absorb every sentient race in the galaxy. Because, as we already know, a sentient brain is still capable of falling victim to becoming a simp. The path to victory is your own free choice. The game itself is very customizable, meaning there's no reason to pick any speed except fast. Any galaxy besides...
So always play on fast. Why do people play slower? Like, you play slow when you don't know about the game. I can understand that, but you do that in single player co-op with a friend. But if you're going into multiplayer and someone hosts a server, it must be the fastest time or it's garbage, man. I would instantly leave.
Ovoid, and if anyone dares pick a custom race, we are all going to collectively form a non-aggression pact and hunt you down.
Come on, I did some custom races. They were good. They were not broken or something, but yeah, I can understand it. kinda.
Starting off, you only have a single planet. Your home system is very modest, and you need to rapidly scale your operations if you hope to compete with the rest. To do so, you'll need to explore, expand, and colonize new systems. Exploration is very simple. You send an exploration vessel into the great unknown and watch as it dies to pirates. Before that happens, you'll want to find as many uncolonized systems as possible. On each planet, there's a chance of finding curiosities. These are the slow, pulsing rings you see on display. To explore a curiosity, you need to send a probe. It's quite similar
Yeah, it's basically like anomalies in Stellaris.
to the probe minigame from Mass Effect 2. If successful, the game will let you know, together with a small reward for finding it before anyone else. These can be anything from strategic or luxury resources, planetary anomalies, or even the start of a random quest line. The point of curiosities is to try and guess which star systems are worth colonizing. In general, any system less than 3 planets is garbage. Any system with only cold planets is garbage. In fact, ask enough players and you'll find that every possible star system ever formed by the laws of physics is still garbage. Colonize them anyway, because I like the animation that plays each time you do so.
Yeah,
There's actually
it's also great, man. Like, they put so much care into it. Like this game, when I first time I played it, it felt so fucking original. Even though it's one of those 4X games which are basically copy pasted, man. Like, this is simply good design.
an animation for every type of planet, which I didn't know, because who the fuck colonizes a gas giant as their first choice of planet? It's like, where are we dropping, boys? Oh yeah, on the burning gas giant.
Yep.
How are we meant to walk on a gas giant? Very carefully. Anyway, I'm losing track. You choose a star system, and you pick a more reasonable type of planet to be the base of your colony. Most factions can't settle a system immediately. They need to form an outpost, send colony support, and convince any other players contesting the system to cease their aggressive expansionism. You can do this through liberal policies, such as stealing their food supplies, or less liberal policies, also known as an interplanetary blockade, with the sole purpose of starving them to death. Typically, this is how you greet other players. Otherwise, you blast their ships out of orbit and you get sent a formal complaint, to which you respond accordingly. Diplomacy is an interesting concept.
We do have other things to take care of. These are diplomatic channels, not social media. Again? Are you just lonely?
Because unlike many games of a similar nature, diplomacy is a tangible resource. In fact, everything is a resource. If you want to condense down the Endless Space 2 experience, you're going to be spending hours of your life trying to increase the 5 colors: green, orange, yellow, blue, and purple. Respectively, these are food, industry, dust, science, and influence, or FIDSI for short. These are the combined economic outputs of your systems. At the beginning, you don't have very much. You can't do very much, so you need more. A lot more. You need food to grow population. Population contributes to the economy and gives you different bonuses depending on the race of that population. But a planet's base output is pathetic, so you need to build improvements. To do that, you need industry. More production. But you can't have industry without research.
Yep, it's hard to balance out sometimes, especially with some weirder factions.
And you can't have research without science. Besides unique variations, every faction follows the same unified tech tree. Supporting larger industry requires dust, a lot of dust. And if you're planning to go to war, exponentially more dust. To even make the formal declaration that you're going to erase someone off the face of the galaxy, you need influence. It is the most precious resource and represents your combined political power. The bigger your influence, the bigger your sphere of influence. This game doesn't work on national borders. It works on raw intergalactic peer pressure. Have enough influence and you'll absorb everyone without even lifting a finger. Besides other players, there are also minor factions.
Did you know the Nigerians govern a sector of space occupied by several different humanoid species?
If we say yes, will you feed us?
One of those species is the Benkarans. They occupy just 10% of Nigerian space, but take up nearly 80% of the space in Nigerian prisons.
Maybe they commit more crimes.
Maybe.
These are civilizations that are advanced, yet not advanced enough to avoid a simulation. These are very diverse and can be anything from sentient jellyfish, reformed assassin droids looking for God, or even moving chunks of coral reef remotely piloted by a sentient supercomputer the size of a planet, which in itself was formed by random chance. Minor factions exist to be absorbed by other players. Why? Because you get a free system out of it and a unique racial trait. Never underestimate these, because a single good trait can win you the game. There's also pirates.
It's okay. Everybody finds me irresistible.
Yeah.
Pirates exist to occupy every system you ever like and reduce the overall quality of your time and space.
Fucking
Luckily,
annoying.
pirates are business oriented and will not trouble you as long as you pay. Also, I like putting pirate marks on all of my friends' colonies. Consider it an indirect way of saying maybe you should move. Now you've got the basics down. What are you meant to do? You're meant to try and you're meant to fail. Endless Space 2 gives you freedom. Freedom to fuck up and suffer the consequences. The
Yes.
tech tree is subdivided into 4 distinct categories: military, economy, science, and empire. Develop your military and you get bigger guns, but you don't get the ships to mount them. You need to develop your empire for that. Then you need a military
Go on science first.
industrial complex to facilitate the production of your armada, which forces you to tech economy, not only for developing your systems, but for supplying a constant stream of dust, because bankruptcy is not an option. For reference, one technology unlock is the difference between abject poverty and having the largest intergalactic trade company incorporated on your home system. Why stop there? Get access to the galactic commodities market as well, because it's a biological requirement for me to speculate the stock market in every game I play. Do all that
Yep.
and realize you neglected science, which is a problem, because every single research you ever research makes every following research more expensive to research. Endless Space 2 is a great galactic scale balancing act. Every action taken is counterbalanced by the opportunity cost of every action not taken. Here's an example. Let's say you found a nice system, but you can't colonize it because each type of planet requires the respective technology to touch ground on their surface. You might spend a bunch of turns teching towards that. As a result, you get a new system. However, your lack of tech leaves you oblivious to the contents.
Yep.
You later find out that ideal Mediterranean planet you picked is filled with dinosaurs. The water is made of mercury, and the atmosphere gives you cancer. If you pumped everything into science and exploration, you would have found a much better system nearby. Because you explored the curiosities, you know there's plenty of strategic deposits without the risk of melanoma. Even the
wisely.
worst colony has great potential. Given a development plan, systems can compensate for deficiency using luxury. Low birth rate, spike the water with red sang. No production, use Jadonics. Do people still keep using the term war criminal in your presence? Despite the fact you've clarified multiple times that enemy civilians are indeed active combatants, bring out the hallucinogenic grapes. Given time, any
Let's go.
problem can be solved. Given money, any problem can be solved instantaneously. I don't know exactly how we're going to terraform a planet in a single turn, but I know the next time I look, there better be a fucking jungle instead. There's a
Bloody
lot of
works.
ships in this game, unique to each faction. They're all fully customizable, limited only by the type and number of modules available. Primarily, you're going to use them to intimidate your enemies into submission and to intimidate
Bro,
your
it's basically like a movie. Like, I love it.
friends into working a little harder on their friendship.
I know those are like basically autobats where you just watch, but yeah, you can still
Your only control
you can still take a like strategy beforehand. Like it's like rock paper scissors, and then you watch the whole battle unfold.
over
It's
combat
nice.
is the loadout, formation, and tactics used by your military. The rest is a simulation played out by the computer, where each time a ship explodes, you know the cinematic at the end of Diablo 2 where Tyrael throws his sword at the World Stone and it explodes
Good old
into
times,
a
man.
billion chunks of wood? Yeah, that's exactly how every ship explodes in this game. Combat is very simple. There's different weapons, which have different accuracies depending on the range of engagement. Flat cannons shred anything up close, including long-range ballistic missiles, but they bounce off armor. Lasers cut ships in half at mid-range, while beam weaponry works at every range. Unless they have shields, you can absolutely get away with filling every slot with a flat cannon, choosing the default tactics card, and still win every fight. Besides interplanetary combat, you can also directly invade. This works on the same principle, which means I'm still going to use the default tactics card, which alternative just so happens to be preemptive orbital bombardment. Many civilians will die, but that is a sacrifice I'm willing to make. Your chance of success depends entirely on whether or not you have replaced your troops with a mobile suit
Holy
Gundam.
shit.
If you conquer a system, you can choose to either spare the population or take a massive hit to your public approval rating by re-educating and reintegrating the native population into the fucking soil, which is a good time and segue to talk about politics. In Endless Space 2, you have government, you have Senate, and you have an obligation to represent your people, which is why we have a dictatorship. Power to the masses is power to the upper classes, and any proletariat will see the wisdom of my words. Politics is all-encompassing in Endless Space 2. Any action you take, endorse, or sponsor will shift the political axis of your entire empire. As with real life, the opinions of your people are difficult to manage, their motivations difficult to guess. There's a total of 6 different party ideologies you can choose to support, each two a pair of polar opposites: religious and scientific, militarist and pacifist, ecological and industrial. On top of that, you've got your government. This controls your party representation and how much corruption you can get away with. Democracy has the widest free party representation. It is also the most corrupt because I have no control over my elections. Republics and federations are generally more progressive, offering less representation and more opportunities to correct the result of any rigged election. Dictatorship completely removes the need for underhanded tactics and ensures that all voices are heard and represented by the single party I choose. Every political party holding office has representatives. These are not your average man. These are heroes recruited from the academy. But what is the academy? You know how I said dust is currency and dust is essentially a cloud computing nanite swarm? Now, imagine smoking it, because the Academy does exactly that. You're hiring nanite-augmented crackheads to rule your empire. These are very diverse in both race and specialization. They each have their own unique and interesting backstory, except Scales. Scales is literally a giant bat that likes to eat zucchini. How is she qualified in any way to be my senator? I don't know, but the people love her, and who am I to say no to that smile? So, what's the point of political parties? I'll tell you, it's called legislation, and legislation controls the focus of your empire. You can pass laws respective to each party you have in office. The leading political party also enacts their own automatic policy. Scientists let you research high-tech without unlocking it. Religion gives you the moral high ground to escalate a Cold War without legal consequence. Industrialism uses the economy to finance the economy by expanding the economy. How could ecology possibly compete? Well, by giving the public announcement that we don't exactly know how to live on a volcano, so let's do it anyway. Militarist rhetoric not only removes the political cost of war, it actively encourages you to go to war with absolutely everyone. And finally, the pacifists can, at any time, without your consent, force you into a state of peace. Passing law costs influence, depending on the size of your empire. The longer a party stays in power, the more laws you have to choose from. For example, state-enforced eugenics and mandatory sterilization of other races who aren't your own is a relatively simple law to pass with minimal political experience. Asking everyone to work overtime requires a level of finesse and eloquence only seen in the most Machiavellian of politicians. Unlike many 4X games, Endless Space 2 has quests. Most of these are faction-specific story missions with branching political options to suit your empire. They're quite interesting, they give you something to do, and most of all, they give you permanent upgrades for the rest of the game. You also have multiplayer. How do you play multiplayer? It's quite simple. You all connect to a game, you play for about 50 turns, you forget to make backups of your game, and then everyone collectively desynchronizes. Welcome to Endless Space.
There's always bugging for X games, man. I don't know. Making multiplayer work with multiple people. There's always someone in the Discord who is missing. Like, I hate that shit. Like, there's always that one dude who goes off and the next day it's someone different. Like, I hate it. This is why for X games should be enjoyed with just like 2 to 3 people, I guess. More it's kind of meh and crazy. Only if those people are absolute tryhards and for X games, then it's absolute fun. Like, we commit for like 8 hours in a fucking 4X game, and that game will be banging, man.
Space 2 multiplayer. With all that covered, you've got a general idea of how to play Endless Space 2. Now, let's get to the fun stuff, the factions. There are currently 12 different races to choose. I'm gonna cover them all. The Sophons are a race of intellectuals. Despite this, they
OP science, quite simple.
talk in a British accent. They're overdeveloped geckos that love science and hate personal health and safety. The less people know a technology, the faster Sophons can obtain it. If you want a fairly vanilla faction with an easy science victory, go play the Sophonity. Conversely,
Sorry, Link. I can't give credit. Come back when you're a little, richer.
we have the Lumeris, whose entire ethos, motivation, and philosophy can be crystallized in one word: money. For the Lumeris, no problem is too great, as long as you throw piles of money at it. They also have my favorite faction leader,
Commerce, baby. The lifeblood of this and any other galaxy.
who is probably responsible for every single trade cartel in the known galaxy, and arguably runs more of an economic crime syndicate than a legitimate empire. But I don't care, because Big Titty Fish Mommy is going to buy the galaxy, and I'm gonna help her. If you like making obscene amounts of cash, amphibious mommy milkers, or just winning the game by accident, play Lumeris. Imagine rampant over-industrialization and the fractured ecosystem that follows. Given such dire conditions, what do you think is the most reasonable course of action? You can A, put all your resources into ecological initiatives and repair the sorry state of your planet, or B, digitize yourself and become a gaming laptop. The Vodiani chose the second option. Even better, they made a church out of it. Belief is strength, worship is endless, and heretics are nothing but essence for the harvest. Unlike other races, the Vodiani don't colonize.
Yeah, they were a bit weird. I didn't really like to play them.
They travel, they land, and then they harvest. Then we have Horatio.
Come to pry on the most stunning man in the galaxy again?
Originally a wealthy trillionaire, Horatio set out to find his own star system. Along the way, he also found extremely advanced cloning technology, so he made 1 billion copies of the most beautiful and gorgeous person to ever exist, which was of course Horatio. And then Horatio thought to himself, what better than to fill the galaxy with beauty? What better than to fill the galaxy with Horatio? Horatio is concerned with pressing matters such as air conditioning. His government, accordingly, is an eco-fascist dictatorship.
Make Horatio great again.
Of course, there are other, less fortunate races than Horatio, but Horatio is not only handsome, he is also brilliant, and thus he finds ways to integrate minority populations by splicing their genetics with Horatio. Yes, many of your less symmetrical friends and family may simply disappear, but know that their memory will live on inside Horatio. Horatio is a classic case of careful who you call ugly in high school, because he just might use the entire galaxy as a glorified eugenics program. The United Empire can be summarized in a single clip.
I'm doing my part.
Yeah, I played them the most, like,
I'm doing my part.
pretty standard, easy.
The United Empire is an imperialist
And great ship design, look at this, man.
expansionist federation where the will of the emperor is absolute. Any construction, any
Like, it's basically like Arcturus Minx, it's or like the Emperor.
technology, any luxury he so desires, the empire provides. For the emperor does not ask, he commands, and the raw influence of his voice can make the impossible into reality. If you want to play not only the most industrious faction, but also the one that generates the most influence just by being industrious, try the United Empire. Propaganda, patriotism, and the
Good for
greatest of
beginners,
military
pretty good.
industrial complexes await you. Enlist today, service guarantees citizenship. So far, everyone I covered at least have the option of diplomacy. But what if
We get to the Japanese, yeah.
that's just not in your nature?
What do you sound like when you scream?
Ah, no.
The
that was so
Cravers are
different.
fucking terrifying. As a leftover bioweapon made by the Virtual Endless, they only have one purpose: consume everything. Any planet with Cravers on it has a fixed life expectancy, because the Cravers will rip it, strip it, and tear it apart. And then they move on. There is no long-term plan. There is no
Yeah,
sustainability.
those harvest civilizations, I'm not a big fan of him.
There is no
Never liked the
choice
playstyle.
but to consume you as well.
We are coming.
Trees. Do you know how fast a tree moves? Not very fast. The Unfallen are a race of trees. They speak with a Scottish accent.
Why do you pester the heart with your petty needs?
Much like the Scottish, trees are rooted to the ground. They don't do much, and their only way of winning the game is to ask you politely, do you know how they colonize other planets? They need to slowly, delicately, without interruption, entwine them with celestial vines and hope or pray that they didn't start next to cravers. If you enjoy pressing and turn and being a vegetable, you'll enjoy playing the Unfallen. Imagine being an ostrich. Now, imagine evolving to the point where you're used as arena blood sports for the entertainment of an advanced decadent civilization. Then that civilization gets wiped out. You get your freedom and form a tribalistic society of samurai ostriches. Then you accidentally stab your katana through a giant ship and suddenly you're a major faction. The Hisho were added with the Supremacy DLC, together with the main source of tears and salt on the Endless Space 2 forums, Behemoths. Behemoths are multi-purpose capital class ships. They can support the bureaucracy, plutocracy, or theocracy, accelerate genocide, accommodate homicide, extract resources in a remote situation, and even terraform planets for improved habitation. They can do anything. That's why they're insanely expensive and you get very few of them. But that's not why people got upset. They got upset because the Behemoth is a precursor to something a little more concerning. A planet killer is morally dubious, leaves millions of grieving survivors, and generally causes public unrest. A system killer accelerates a megaton nuclear payload directly at the sun, causing it to expand into a red supergiant as the core collapses and begins to fuse hydrogen. In a single nanosecond, all
Not a big fan of this one. This should be disabled in multiplayer.
life in that solar system is gonna need some SPF 70 sunscreen. The Obliterator is a system killer which is made by upgrading a Behemoth, and prior to many updates and patches had no effect on public relations. I found this incredibly entertaining. Because the missile actually has to travel to its destination, it often took several turns for enemy players to see the ball of light quickly approaching their home system.
And then it's already too late, man.
At this point, you will notice something, the chat functionality, inside which you will see a stream of colorful messages calling you a number of racial slurs, after which the player will mysteriously disconnect and add you as a friend on Steam. Even after numerous nerfs, the Hisho stand tall. For the Hisho, combat isn't just about winning, it's about honor, which they call Kai because they're a race of weeaboo samurai chickens. The more honorable your actions, the more Kai you generate, the more obedient your empire. And if it ever falls too low, just remember, Aztec blood sacrifices are a great way of gaining popularity.
Nice.
Vaulters are the DLC race designed to completely invalidate the Sophons, because for
seen the Walters.
Vaulters, location is no issue. We've got portals for that. Disconnected system with no clear star lane, even better. The typical Vaulter player will usually
That's
fuck
okay,
off to
what
the
the-
four corners of a galaxy and quietly win a science victory before we can even find them. Also, their mothership, the Argosy, can be used as a two-way portal. I very much enjoy parking outside an enemy system, warping in my Obliterator, and cooking them instantaneously. The Riftborn are Tetris blocks from another universe, which is currently overrun with super aids. In a last act of desperation, the Riftborn entered our universe. To them, it's a dystopian reality filled with all manner of squirming, wriggling creatures that piss and shit everywhere. From their perspective, they just took a one-way ticket to hell. However, they don't judge. They just want to survive. Unlike us, Riftborn aren't born. They're made in a construction queue. Otherwise, they work a lot like us, except in reverse. Terrestrial planet, I sleep. 1,000-degree lava planet with no
Real
trace
shit.
of life? Real shit. Colonize immediately. Hey, it's a race of abstract geometric polygons. Give them a break. Luckily, they can also break reality by compressing or dilating the flow of time. And if you've ever been to a college fraternity, you'll have no problem pronouncing their names. The second last DLC, Penumbra, introduced a controversial mechanic. hacking. It's a nice way to grab intel, sabotage enemy systems, and of course, accidentally turn a craver government into a pacifist dictatorship.
What?
With that, they also added the Umbral Choir. The Umbral Choir is an immaterial, intergalactic wraith with good intentions. Like a ghost in the machine, the Umbral Choir spreads by hacking absolutely everything. Every transmission is tapped, every system is compromised,
Makes
and
sense.
we have no trace of who did it, because the Umbral Choir doesn't want to be found. How do you fight something you can't see? How do you stop something that's already inside the wire? And if it's already inside the wire, then how do you know it isn't inside you already? Honestly, they're extremely fun to play, especially when your friends mouse over a system and ask why half of their GDP keeps disappearing into the Craver Pension Fund. Finally, it's a good time to talk about the last DLC, Awakening, which adds the Nakalim, a fairly interesting religious faction that I personally enjoyed, but also adds the Academy as a separate AI-controlled faction. Now, let me tell you why that's a problem, because the leader of the Academy, bear with me, I don't know how to pronounce his name, because Isandir takes territory which he doesn't need away from players. He can
Bro, bad shit. Bad shit.
also enter your territory, destroy your fleets, and siege your planets. But Lord forbid you manage to sink one of Isandir's ships, which, by the way, are stronger than any other faction. That's an act of aggression, and he's going to ask you to pay reparations. Small side note, if you're
What
getting
the hell?
harassed and abused by Isandir and you want him to stop, you can't. Until you discover the location of the Academy, you can't even do diplomacy. Now, let's say you forgive all that. You're open-minded, and you're wondering, what's the point of a new Academy?
I am once again asking for your financial support.
Every 10 turns, Isandir will ask for your most generous financial contribution to the Academy. The highest contributions will get their preferred position within the Academy. After another 10 turns,
I am once again asking for your financial support.
also, he's been expertly programmed to forget any positive relations you had before, which may surprise you, since he'll go back to neutral and start attacking you. Better pay up, because you can't contribute to the Academy until you've paid reparations. If you try to take his home system, he'll demand you
Bro,
give it
this is
back
garbage.
and
This is
pay
garbage mechanic.
reparations. Who the fuck made this shit? Oh right, it's not even the same studio. They outsourced this.
I'm from Buenos Aires, and I say kill them all! Yeah!
All the
What
other
the heck?
DLC up until Penumbra, fantastic. Love it. Awakening is about $13 you can spend to make the game worse. It's such garbage that even if I got it for free, I'd still ask for a refund. We could talk hours about strategy, metagame, and the eternal question we always return to. Is Endless Space 2 balanced? No, it is not. There are many mods to try and fix this, but ultimately, part of what makes this game so interesting is the element of randomness, forcing you to adapt and overcome the circumstances to the best of your ability. There's many players out there who will constantly demand you remake the game, citing that they don't have an optimal 5-planet system adjacent to them and can't possibly compete. If you don't, they disconnect. The equivalent of this is being born on planet Earth to a middle-class family and immediately committing suicide to try and re-roll for better RNG. Because if I can't be born as the son of a wealthy Middle Eastern sheikh, I may as well not be born. Endless Space 2 is a wonderfully designed and beautifully made game with such a level of pace and intrigue that I actually bought a legal copy. I've played it for 2 years and I still keep coming back. It satisfies every tick box I've
Maybe I'll
ever
check it out
wanted
again.
for a civilization game in space. It's enjoyable and relaxing both in single player and in multiplayer. You're probably going to desynchronize before anyone actually gets angry. I like the music and I enjoy amphibious mommy milkers. I give Endless Space 2 an extremely high score. I am also issuing a public fatwa against anyone responsible for the Awakening DLC. This time there's no discount because my inside man had a talk with Sega. Their formal response: fuck off. So I recommend waiting for a sale, buying on discount, or using other legal methods of purchase that I am not yet aware of. As always, more content to come, so stay tuned. I'm sorry for all the delays. Streaming really put me back. A warm thanks to the many members of the Merchants Guild, generously funding and bankrolling these videos.
Perfect.
You're all truly wonderful. Take care and have a good one.
Damn. It was good shit. There will be a sad day when we are done with every single Seth video, but yeah. But for the time being, we're gonna enjoy the shit out of it. If you wanna see more of this, you know what to do. Just leave a like and sub, and that's actually it. I'm gonna react to more of this shit. Like this content you can rewatch like every other month or so. I love it. Yeah, I think I've seen this video like 3 times already. I watched it when it was released, I watched it like a year later and watched it now. Yeah, this brings back good memories, man. I love it. And that's actually it. I guess see you next time. Wafer out.